Anyone that just dares to listen to what I advise and what I suggest they do, and how they go about using their minds, can definitely see amazing results. If you're hopeless, you will find hope. If you feel like you're a failure, you will find success. If you feel you're stuck, you will find a way to break free. Trust me on this. This is powerful information. Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to go over the story on how I stumbled upon metaphysical teachings and law of attraction teachings, because it was really a stumbling upon in my case. Perhaps you have heard stories from other coaches out there that teach these things to humanity, and they might have very similar stories of how they went from poverty to riches, for example. That's how it usually goes for people when they teach this stuff, is that they say, well, I figured out a way to get rich and successful by using my mind in a certain way. With me, the story is totally different, and I'm sure there are many other people that would have a similar sort of story on how they, ended up in this sort of journey on expansion and fuller expression and learning more about the power of their own mind. But with me, I would have to take you back at least to around 2006. That's when things really started to take an interesting turn in my life. For one thing, I remember in 2005, when I was 15 years old, I had this dream where I was thinking to myself, I really want to make movies. And I had no idea how to go about it. I had no experience with that. I made some short videos here and there, more for fun. They weren't anything like what I would be doing now. But at least I was having fun, and I really had this dream of becoming an actor and movie director. I would watch other movies on TV and I'd be like, this is so amazing, this is so great, it's so awesome, how did they do this, how did they do that? I was just so fascinated by the whole production of movies. And my mom would always say, you talk with such passion about these things, you should really become a director, Ranil. And I would say to her, I agree, I really want to become one. So the obvious thing for me as time ticked on was, as I turned 16 later that year, I started to really consider, okay, I want to write my own script, because, there's not really any point. At the time I figured to try and work somewhere. At my age, I was like, I'm going to have to prove myself and just use my own creativity. The important thing to note here is that I didn't yet study any law of attraction material, so everything that occurred to me in those times was totally unconscious. I wasn't aware of what really was going on at all. I just had this dream in my mind and I worked on it. These are elements of metaphysical teachings that I was applying unconsciously in my case. So I was really clear through my imagination on what this film project would be about at the time. It would be a horror movie, and I wrote this script all throughout the summer of 2006. So this is already a year later. All sorts of planning went in there, dreaming, time to think about it, to sort of dream what it would be like, and then the desire started to grow within me. And then I made the decision, okay, I'm gonna write my own story, and I started writing my own script. Now, you know what happened? That first script that I wrote was not like how you would write a movie script at all. I had no idea what I was doing. I only knew I see this movie in my mind. I gotta put it on paper somehow so that cast and crew eventually would understand what this project is about, right? So I would write that, and I would actually send it to a movie studio where I was like, maybe they would be interested in producing it. You see, I had no limit on how I was dreaming. I was just doing stuff that most people would probably not even try, because they would already think that that's impossible or probably not realistic to go about it in this manner. I didn't even consider any of that stuff. I only had a dream. My mind was occupied with that dream. So I sent that first movie script over to a studio, and I guess something very funny happened, is that they actually got back to me. You see, imagine that, right? Here's this guy, 16 years old at the time, sending a movie script that is clearly not written in the way a movie script is supposed to be written. But this company got back to me, and you know what they said? They said they didn't have the time to really work on this project that I had in my mind. Like, I wanted to make a horror movie, so they were like, and because that's kind of unique for the Netherlands at the time, but even now I think it's still kind of a very small sort of category of films that is produced in the Netherlands itself. But they were like, because of that reason, it's probably not that popular for people over here to do it. So they usually want to work with romance movies and more cliche rap stories, or at least stuff in that direction, so it can relate to more people, I suppose. So that's what they said, like, because it's horror, it's probably not really our thing, this and that. But then this person also said, also another note, the script that you wrote is not how you write a movie script, so I suggest you start learning on how to do so. And I didn't take it as offensive. I was like, damn, are they right? Is that true? Like, maybe they're right. Like, I never looked it up. So what I did was, there's this website, I think it still exists, where you can actually look up movie scripts from thousands of Hollywood movies, even like the big ones. Even the scripts are online. You can read the scripts and see how it unfolds. A funny thing I would do was take that script, put on the movie, and then I would look at the script and look at the movie and see how they actually went about it and to what degree they actually describe the scenes. And many times they do describe it in some pretty interesting ways. But at least that taught me, or at least gave me some indication on how they write movie scripts. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to write it in that style. So I didn't copy the story, of course, but I wrote it in a certain style because movie scripts are written in a certain way. So it's kind of hard to describe this all on camera right now, and it doesn't really matter if you're not even interested in that. But at least I went with that route, and then, the script at least looked better on the surface. Then another issue were grammatical errors, no joke. So I would have all these errors maybe in sentence structure, because again, I didn't pay attention to it, but at least I had the script that at first glance it looked like a movie script once and for all. So then, over time, some interesting things happened in the sense that all sorts of people started to show up that were interested in playing a role in this movie, but also a lot of freelancers and other professionals were interested in helping out and sponsoring and supporting this movie project as a crew member. And this is where things got really fascinating, because all these law of attraction teachers, they lead on into this. So I'm gonna get there, but as I had these things happen to me, I had meetings, and then one time my dad asked me, because he was part of it as well, so I was still a young guy, so I was like, I'll involve my dad, why not? And some other people, family members. And he asked me, how did you stumble upon all these people? Where did you find all these people? And I remember specifically telling him, I don't know, Dad, they just showed up. You see, this is a very important element about the law of attraction. People just showing up. Things just showing up for you if you're in alignment with your dream. So that's basically what happened for me. I had the dream in my mind, and I was not afraid to act on it. So at the end of the day, for a little while, I ended up holding a few meetings here and there with crew members, people that were a lot older than me. Here was this young guy, 16 years old, with this vision for making a movie, and I had to tell them all what we're gonna do and how we're gonna go about this. That was a huge responsibility, something that kind of made me nervous, but I still went with it. It's another important factor. I also had to give auditions. I never done that in my life, but I knew that's part of it, to figure out which people might be good for a role. So I gave these auditions, and here I was, this young guy, and then there was a large group of people. I don't remember the amount, but I do remember I would get hundreds of emails a day almost from people that were interested in auditioning for this film. So I did give some auditions, but again, I was nervous because I was this young guy, and then this whole group of people that came into this office that we were allowed to use somewhere in a city. And it was the weirdest stuff, because I remember talking to some of these people that showed up for auditioning, and I just held a little small talk with them, just asking them how it went. Some of them came with their parents, because I guess that's more comfortable for some, because there were some younger, it was like teenagers and adults, in the cast itself for the role. So these parents then would be like, oh, so you're the director, and they were really you could tell they were surprised. They were like, this is a young guy, this young guy is going to be the director of this project with all these people already involved, huh? How did that happen? Well, that all happened because I apparently was following the law of attraction teachings unconsciously. So this was only on reflection that I started to realize this. So then in 2007, what really happened and where my journey started, we're gonna get into it now, is I stumbled upon this book and movie called The Secret. Now that movie is not really a movie, it's like a video presentation of a book, but it's called The Secret, and it's about the law of attraction. It was pretty popular. It came out in 2006, I think, or 2005. either of the two officially. And in 2007 it found my way in my life. However, when I read it, unlike most people, I didn't just instantly get into this strange state of mind thinking all magically. Like, it might sound a little weird, but some people kind of lost their mind almost, you could say. They didn't really understand the laws yet. They only were discovering that apparently you can attract what you want by using your mind in a certain way. And that really stood out to me. So I decided for myself then and there in 2007, this sounds fascinating. Something about this speaks to me. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can sense there's truth in this book, in what these people are sharing. And I want to figure out more about it. So let's see, August, the summer of 2007 until January 2008, I just kept reading The Secret. Like, I kept rereading it every time I needed to comfort myself and to remember and remind myself, apparently I can attract what I want in my life. Apparently I can succeed. Apparently I can achieve things. That comforts me, because right now I was totally lost. You see, what happened in 2007, a year after that movie script stuff, and that all seemed to go well for me, is that my mom became very suicidal, and then I couldn't focus on my college for the time being. My home situation got so bad. Police were involved constantly, constantly hearing your mom being in the hospital and in psych wards because, she tried to take her own life constantly. Like, constantly, man. Things were getting completely crazy for me at the time. And then this book was giving me hope. Like, maybe there's some way that I can do something great with my life, because at the time I actually gave up on my dream of making films for the time being. I became so depressed because of what was happening with my mom. I couldn't even focus on my creative endeavors any longer. So this book, again, it gave me hope, and I kept reading it and rereading it for a couple months. And it was in 2008, in January, that I decided I should look into this more. So I looked up one of the people that was mentioned in the book, or that was part of the book, was Paul Proctor. He's still active to this day. He's somewhere in his 80s by now. A very interesting man with very powerful ideas himself. And he ended up becoming my mentor for a year in 2011. But between 2008 and 2011, I just used all that time to study for myself. So I would study his writings for a little bit here and there, see what he had to say about this so-called law of attraction and the mind, and then it started to develop in deeper and deeper ways. But not just that, I also started reading other books in general. So one of them, as I mentioned, was The Science of Getting Rich, that I've been sharing through my channel with additional information of what I've learned over all these years of studying it for myself. And then more and more and more books just showed up. They just kept showing up. Even now, sometimes a book just shows up in my world that actually gives me a lot of new ideas or powerful ideas about how to use consciousness. It just happens for me. I know it's because I'm synced up to it, and I like to know more about consciousness, so that's why they show up in my world. But this is where the journey started, because in 2008, in February to be exact, that's when my mom passed away, because of all the suicide attempts. Well, it did happen. She took her own life. It was a very sad time, very painful again. Very, very painful if I think back about it. That's why I read her not too much, but it really crystallized in my mind. I remember that night when she passed away, I said to myself, I'm going to fulfill a promise I made her, which was to find a way on how to live a happy and successful life through the power of our minds. Because a few months before she passed away, I did show her that book about the law of attraction, and she said, and she read a part and she said, "This sounds too good to be true, Ranil. But if you're able to find a way, well, I'm sure you're able to find a way on how to help humanity." Something along that line, that's what she said at the time. I always remember that, so when she did pass away, I made a firm decision, I'm going to win. I'm going to learn all I can about consciousness, or at least as much as possible, help humanity to discover this for themselves so that they can grow and expand. So the people who have so far already watched my current content, some of them have even admitted to me in private that they were depressed at one point in their lives. They were totally lost, perhaps in addiction or whatever else, in a job they didn't like. And then they started considering what I'm teaching and sharing, and everything starts to improve. They suddenly start to realize how to overcome all of that, and they suddenly aren't depressed anymore. They have hope. They have hope. They have actual hope for their future. You see, that was missing in my mother's life, and that's what I'm trying to give people now. So it's actually really beautiful. But that's kind of a long story short on how I stumbled upon these teachings and how my journey began into metaphysical knowledge, and knowledge of the consciousness of the mind, the power of our minds, right? Now, there have been many other incidents through which I have proved to myself that these things really work. Because even back then with that movie project, I remember I had to go to a certain location that I felt like would be a good place for me to shoot a scene for the movie. So I went to that city together with my dad and my sister, I think, at the time. And as we were walking in that city, I didn't know exactly where this building was located that I was interested in. So a person came walking by, just a total random stranger, right? And we asked him, "Do you know where this building is located?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's over there. Or you have to go there and there." But then he wanted to walk on, but then he stopped, he turned around and said, Why do you even want to know? Because I work at that location. And we were like, "Oh, great. Then you might be able to actually want to hear what we have to say." So I told him about this movie project. He was like, "Oh, that's interesting. You know what? I'll come with you because then I can open the door for you." Because I think he even owned the place, or at least he knew the boss. One of the two things. It's kind of vague. It's so long ago, but no. But you see, that's another law of attraction element right there. This person, coincidentally, right, was just there. I was just there at the right time, walking in the city, walking across someone out of thousands that could have passed us that knew exactly what, or that could exactly offer what I needed, because he was involved and knew that building in particular because he worked there. You know, examples like that happened all the time in my life. There were little ones if I look back at it. They don't really matter that much. But it's fascinating to see, looking back on it as I'm teaching this now to humanity, is how I've been doing many of these things unconsciously. And it's probably the same for you. But the more conscious you become with this power, the more you'll benefit because of it. Like one of the things Bob Proctor would say, and I think he based it off somebody else, but I don't know for sure, but the concept of if you can hold it in your, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. You could also say if you can hold it in your mind, in your imagination, well, then you can hold it in your physical hands. You see, there's a process to all of this, a creative process through which we can actually turn the concepts of our own thoughts and imagination into physical things. And it's a lack of understanding this that stops people from going from their greatest dreams. But if you start to understand the power of your mind, amazing things will happen. Trust me, I've studied this for over 13, well, almost 13 years now. And I have learned a lot about the mind that I could still share. And there's still so much more that I could personally learn. But one thing I do know is that anyone that dares to listen to what I advise and what I suggest they do, and how they go about using their minds, can definitely see amazing results. If you're hopeless, you will find hope. If you feel like you're a failure, you will find success. If you feel you're stuck, you will find a way to break free. Trust me on this. This is powerful information. And all we have to do is set aside our prejudice or doubts or worries or old limiting beliefs. Because one of the major ones is that people think that this sort of information, if it's that powerful, surely it would be taught in school and stuff like that. But that's not true. The school system is already determined in a way that it's just meant that you fit into society. But whereas what we teach is how to embrace your own individuality and realize and express your own dreams in life through the right use of your own mind. Because you have a power inside of there that can help you manifest and achieve whatsoever you desire. And it's important to discover that power and to learn about it so that you can make use of it. Another interesting thing was that from my childhood on, I seemed to be the sort of person that was always really spiritually aware in some way, but I never really knew what that all meant. I never considered it a spiritual thing. I just could sense certain things inside of myself that I would then share with others. For example, with my dad, even in my early teens, even when I was like 11 or 12, and he would sometimes be kind of surprised that I would say these things, because he was like, that's not common for a person your age to even know. Because I would have these ideas on how we could improve our lives, or how we could like find our ways out of struggles and difficulties by using our minds. I would already sort of hint at having this knowledge somewhere inside of me, but because I was so young, I didn't really understand it. And throughout the rest of my teens, I also didn't really understand it. I just knew it was there for some reason, and it guided me in my activities. My intuition and stuff like that really helped me realize the goals at the time. But looking back at it now, was me actually applying everything that I teach now on an unconscious level. But now I'm conscious of how to use this same power, and then it becomes awesome. And it will be the same for you, because odds are maybe you've had these experiences for yourself of a spiritual nature. You never really understood them. You might seem a little strange to other people, but now we're going to change this from an unconscious activity to a conscious, actual awareness of what this power is all about and what we can use it for in our lives. That's the beauty of it all once you start studying metaphysics. That actually reminded me of another interesting sort of event that occurred in my life when I was a teenager, was that I would once say to my dad, after meditating a lot, I was already into meditating on a regular basis, and then I would tell my dad, all the answers we'll ever need, they will come from within. And my dad would say, well, not all answers come from within. But he did agree with it, for the most part. But you see, the reason why I said that is what I'm saying even to this day, is that the answers we need in order to realize our dreams come from within. They come from the essence of God. But back then, again, I didn't understand anything to the depth I do now, so I just let it at that. I let it go with that, and now I realize I was onto something very powerful, because I knew already, again, without proper awareness of what was going on, that I had a connection with God, with the spirit of life, with and through me. So I could feel my way to the answers of what I was seeking. That's why I said it. All the answers come from within. And it's the same for you. The answer, the solution to any problem you face comes from within. That's what we call hunches and inspired ideas. They develop as you use your mind in the way as I described through my channel. It will automatically start occurring for you. And you see, over all these years, between 2008 and now 2020, I'm still simply studying the mind and sharing what I'm passionate about, what I find fascinating, what has inspired me, what I feel could help humanity develop their own minds in a more powerful direction. That's all I'm doing, and that's all I'm dedicating my life to for the rest of the years that I'll be here on planet Earth, with you and everybody else that still comes in contact with my work. Because I made sure that I'll keep my promise to a mother, but not just for her sake, but for my own, because by now I've discovered how awesome this all is. But I'm sure that if she still were alive, I would have been able to help her by now. Back then, I wasn't in a position to do so. I was still too young and too inexperienced on all these mind matters. But now I'm not. That's how confident I am in my information, in my ideas, in my suggestions, that they can really help people. So you better believe in yourself, because you can do great things. No matter how dark things look, no matter how bad you feel, you can do absolutely amazing things if you but learn how to use your mind. And that's what this channel is all about. And I think that's all you're gonna be seeing from now on. Of course, over time, maybe I'll change the content around a little bit, but the main theme will always be to inspire and help humanity. That is my purpose. That is what I'm dedicating all of my resources and time to make it happen. To help humanity, to inspire them, and to leave something beneficial behind to them once I'm gone, that they can still study and listen to for themselves. So future generations can still benefit from what I've shared and what I've studied myself, because I've dedicated a lot of my free time to this. Most people wouldn't dedicate it, and you don't have to. If you want to be a teacher, then it's important to be passionate and dedicated to what you're sharing. But if you're just a student of this material, just use what we know and achieve your own wildest dreams in life. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.